Hello, so today I wanted to bring your attention to this conceptual model about HIV infection and the biological, cultural, and environmental reasons that kind of lead up to this point and why and what are the causes of receiving this infection. So the arrows that are coming from something, what it's coming from would be the independent variable, and the one that is receiving the head of the arrow is going to be the dependent variable. And so in this conceptual model, I really wanted to focus on the causes of the infection overall, and so that's why HIV infection is in the center and is the primary dependent variable in this case. So to start out, I kind of wanted to look at the biological reasons for this high rate of infection, and I wanted to take note of the properties of the virus itself. So one being a virus, it's resistant to antibiotics, so it's an infection that can spread quite easily, so that's going to increase your rate of HIV infection. Also, you have something special about the virus itself is it actually destroys a type of white blood cell in your immune system called a T helper cell, and then makes copies of itself inside these cells. So gradually what's happening is you're breaking down a person's immune system and in its entirety. And so the properties of the virus itself stop you from knowing you're infected initially, leading people to have a higher risk of infection that has done more damage to the body than if it diagnosed before. So that's some properties of the virus itself. Also, the modes of transmission, as you see above, and also biological, is if you are, can be done from just a mother having a child, and if she is infected with HIV, then so can the child be, and that's because of a transmission of body fluids. And so both of these are going to be lead to HIV infection, and that's why they have the arrow in between, is because they are all signifying modes of infection. To stem from unprotected sex, if you look over in the cultural circle, you'll see the word poverty. And so when you have in impoverished areas, people have lack of education, and that leads to not being educated on safe sexual practices. And so you have a higher rate of unprotected sex, and then in turn a higher rate of HIV infection, because that can lead to those transmission of body fluids that are infected. Also in poverty, coming from poverty are usually rates of high gender inequities. And so when you have a high rate of gender inequities, what's happening is that women are going to have these, like, a differential access to education, employment, health services, information, and overall a heavier burden of health problems on safety and security. And if so, these women don't feel as if they're in a position where they can be comfortable in a relationship to tell their partner to practice safe sex, then they themselves are going to have unprotected sex, and that's going to increase your rate of HIV infection. Also, you see something called rapid urbanization, both a cultural and environmental aspect. And from rapid urbanization comes an enlarged sexual network, partner concurrency, increased substance abuse, and overall just a higher population level virus prevalence. And so that's going to lead to more unprotected sex, and then again a higher rate of HIV infection. Going down into the environmental reasons, you'll see that there might also be something impeding the way of the actual geographical access to a clinic. And so if there are barriers for people being able to receive care, then they themselves are more susceptible to not knowing these modes of transmission and contracting HIV infection. Also, there's actually been studies found that an ecosystem degradation, an environmental cause, will in turn lead to food insecurity. And when you have food insecurity, you're going to have behavior change. And then with this behavior change comes unprotected sex. And again, through these practices, do you again get a higher rate of HIV infection. Another thing I wanted to point out are the actual populations that are unfairly just more prone to receiving an HIV infection. And so males of the gay community, just by engaging in practices and being who they are, because the risk is so high among them, that the modes of transmission are higher, and they again are at more of a risk to receive this infection. Also, unfortunately, the African American population, because of health disparities and biological properties, they themselves are also more prone to receiving an HIV infection. And so just being in those groups as well can lead to this. And so overall, these are just some causes of contracting an HIV infection, split up and compared in a biological, cultural, and environmental conceptual model. Thank you. Hello, so